Hey yo, it's your boy Monster Man Rocco.
It's your boy Swagger Rock.
This is Snack the Ripper.
You rap for those who don't know.
This is Master Ace. You are now rocking with the best. Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records, man.
Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records.
Breaking Records.
Breaking Records Radio. Let's go.
Breaking Records Radio.
Press 5 now. Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records, man. Radio is like the place to be. I don't fuck strange music, dude.
Ace.
Maloney.
How you doing, brother?
Good. Too.
I've been good, man. I can't complain at all. I mean, minus this whole, quarantine and everything, but, everything else is blessed aside from that, man. How you been dealing with this whole thing going on?
Best I can, man. I can't complain. I've been mostly in the house, really. Mostly in the house. You can hear me okay?
Yep. Everybody on your end been safe during all of this?
Yes. Thank God everybody's been good thus far, and we pray that it stays that way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, man. Good to hear. With this whole thing going on, I know it's affected a lot of artists. I know you yourself, you're overseas a lot, touring, traveling. Did you have any shows or anything lined up before this happened that, you guys had to reroute or end up canceling?
Yeah, I had some stuff canceled. We had a run in New England. Boston was the main show, but we had some shows in Connecticut, Vermont, and in Boston, and those got canceled. Obviously,
man. Yeah,
we're trying to do them, but we don't know when that's going to happen right now. It's just hard to say.
And because you're not, I guess you and Polo couldn't even really link up to do like an online show or anything either, eh?
And we talked about it, but I just didn't feel like it's got to be the right setup and stuff. And I haven't really seen anything. I gotta wait to see if I see a way to do it where it looks, dope. I just haven't seen that.
Yeah, that's great, man. Is that are you typing on there?
No, I'm trying to change. Let me just swap out.
Wasn't sure if that was sounds like that.
Yeah, we're good now. I was having a problem with I had an extension on my headset that had like a little short in it, so we good now.
All right. I see all the Vibe magazines in the back. I like that. Is that you got articles in those ones? Or those are those ones specialty art for one reason or another?
Nah, so what you got back there is the other one up? Yeah, you got Aaliyah and Left Eye. Those were Vibe covers. My wife wanted to get those covers blown up. Just to honor those two female artists that she admired. That we've had those for a long time. Never really found a good place to hang them up because they're pretty huge. But now we just use them as backdrops. My wife does her podcast from here, so we always keep those up for her.
Oh, really? She does a podcast, eh?
Yeah. She's it's called The Shay Show. It comes on every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, and she just talks about what's going on in the industry, birthdays, and different controversial topics that happen in the music industry. And she just gives her opinion on what's going on. She has a co-host, and they do a pretty good job, man.
Have they been able to continue? I guess if they're shooting in the crib, they're able to continue doing it during all this.
Well, what they had to convert, because we used to, normally the co-host would come here, and we would shoot it live on Periscope and on Facebook Live. But since he's home, we're home. The last 5 weeks, we're up to the 5th episode of doing it via IG Live, just like how me and you are doing it right now.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what? That's the thing. Like, as much as this whole COVID thing sucks, I think that's one great thing we'll take away from it is it'll give creatives, new ideas and new opportunities and different ways to be able to create and, use these platforms to their advantage. I think it's cool. I've been seeing a lot of interviews on the IG Live, stuff like that. A lot of podcasts becoming more interactive because they're using live platforms and stuff like that. And I think it'll be a really cool, you know, I'm looking forward to see how these things get utilized in the future moving forward when everything kind of goes back to normal.
Yeah, me too. Me too. We'll see. I'm I really want to. I'm trying to figure out in my head when, you know, performing in venues with packed venues. When is that coming back? Everybody seems to think no time soon, which is unfortunate. But you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, because that's the thing. Like an artist like yourself, I know like you're constantly on the road, you're constantly overseas. So you know, it's got to have a huge effect on you know, like what you do. An artist like of the same, you know, in the same magnitude that you know make a lot of their bread and butter from actually touring and stuff.
Well, to when you really look at it, a good majority of the artists, that's where they make most of their money. Most you don't make a lot of money on record sales like that, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of these artists, they get these big advances for their albums that they have to recoup before they
Yeah.
ever see it, before they ever see a dime. And you know, if somebody gives you $1.5 million up front, and depending on your lifestyle, that money could be gone in a couple of years if you really being extravagant with it, buying a whole bunch of crazy cars and jewelry and, you know, a crib in LA, a crib in New York. You know, you start doing all that stuff. And you normally, if you're doing shows, those artists, big artists like that, they might make 50 grand on the show. But when you're not doing shows, when there's no shows popping off at all, your overhead is still your overhead. Your expenses are still your expenses, and you're not getting those $50,000 shows coming in every single or a couple times a month. It changes the landscape a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and you've always like, you know, you've always seemed like somebody who's got a good grip of things, you know, good head on his shoulders, kind of knows how to, you know, keep yourself in order and take control. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're well in control of yourself. But, you know, there's a lot of artists out here who, you know, are living like minimum wage workers, check to check. You know what I mean? Like, they'll blow through money, take a show when they need money again, or a string of shows, you know, and kind of like live the same way, you know, like people that work check to check just for some company or something. So, you know, it's, you know, it's kind of this cold reality that, you know, because it's like, I don't know if you're familiar with Classified. He's a artist from up here in Canada, but he's a really dope artist. But one day, in one of his tracks, he says, this industry don't come with benefits, so I'm saving for a rainy day and trying to stay ahead of it. And I always love that line, you know what I mean? Because I think that's something a lot of artists don't do. Like, you take me as the kind of dude who would have your shit in order, but I can't imagine what it's like for some of these cats who are, you know, literally like check to check, blowing their money on the club and all this stuff every week, and, you know, like haven't been able to make revenue, at least the same kind of revenue, for over a month now. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, once my wife and I bought this house, that became a whole different conversation. You know, I gave up the sneakers, and the clothes. Just the stuff I would normally spend money on. All that stuff had to be given up because the priority became, you know, making sure we had a roof over our head and that our daughter was fed, and everything else didn't matter to me. I can't tell you last time I went out and like bought clothing for myself. Like, I'm gonna go buy me some sneakers and an outfit. Like, I can't tell you the last time I did that. It had to be over 10 years.
yeah. And actually, now that you say that too, when I do see, you know, anytime I see, I've seen you live or live performances, or even when we met up last year in New York to do the interview. And, you know, anytime I see you, basically, you're either rocking your own merch, or like when you're in the studio that day, you're rocking somebody you knew's merch. You're like, actually, I got to get you to get a picture of me. I told him I'd take a picture of this. So
Yeah, I definitely, I would say half the clothing that I have is stuff people gave me, freebies or whatever, and the other half is stuff that my wife just bought without asking me. Like, yo, I just bought you this hoodie and this sweatsuit. You know, do you like it? If I like it, I keep it. If I'm like, nah, I don't really like it, she just take it back. Like, she just randomly look. She's a big fashionista anyway. I call her my stylist. You know, she. So I wear free clothes, and then I wear clothes that my wife picks out. That's pretty much it.
that's dope, though, man. I like it because, you know, a lot of times artists, or, you know, just people creating brand stuff will give artists, you know, merch and clothes with the hopes that they might rock it. And a lot of times, you know, just it passes their hand and just goes somewhere else and never gets looked at again. But I think that's really cool that you actually,
shout to 25, 20, 2520. I'm rocking their hat right now. They gave me a bunch of nice hats.
Oh, dope.
And I got just merch. It's merch. This is a Juice Crew reunion tour shirt on. So pretty much what you just said.
Hey.
My own merch and stuff people gave me.
Are you guys going to be doing any more Juice Crew reunion stuff like after this is over?
It would be nice. The last show we did must be 3 years ago now. Detroit.
Oh, wow.
I think it was Detroit. That was the last show we did together. So hopefully we do more of those. You know, there was talk about doing Atlantic City. That was supposed to happen I think that was supposed to happen in January or February of this year, but something happened with the venue, so it got canceled. And they were talking about trying to reschedule it for the fall. But now we see the way things are looking, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. And you know, like, they haven't said anything like in the States down there about when they're expecting like venues and stuff to open or anything like that yet?
Nah, venues is probably going to be one of the last things on the list of openings. They're going to just focus on the more essential things first. And then I think much further down the road, they'll start to, and even if they open venues, they're going to be like half capacity or 1/3 capacity. Like they're going to have a limit to how many people can be inside the place. We'll see where it goes. In the meantime, I got to do what I got to do, man. I might have to get me a regular gig, regular job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no kidding, eh? Have you been like, well, because you're always an artist too. Like I know you do collaborate with artists, but you know, just from the catalog I've seen, it usually seems like you got to kind of be rocking with something. You know, like some of these artists be out here just selling collabs to anybody who's got the money, but you take me as someone who's more selective with that kind of stuff. Like you want to, you know, be sure of it or sure of the artist kind of before.
I don't know if that's all the way true. I've done some stuff with artists that I didn't know anything about. I like the beat. And I was like, you know, because that's the first thing is like, send the beat. Let me see what the beat sound like.
Yeah.
And I listen to the beat, and if it's like, all right, I could come up with something to this. I like this beat. I don't really worry about if they can rap or not. I don't worry about if they come up with a dope hook or not. That's like not my job. My job is to make sure that my verse is tight over this beat that they created. And I always tell them, after I send you the verse, make sure you send me before you mix it and go final with it, let me hear it. Because a lot of times they take your vocals and they drop them in there and they're off.
Yeah.
And they don't know, and they don't hear it. So I'm always like, yo, nah, you messed it up. And sometimes they put stuff, I've had stuff get put out with me off beat. And when they hit me up and they say, yo, can you promote this song? I'm like, I'm not promoting that. I'm not sharing that. I'm not promoting it. Y'all got me off beat. And that's the end of that.
Have you ever had to fight with artists, like, you know, when they've kind of put out a song prematurely and it hasn't got your stamp of approval yet? Like, have you ever had to, like, you know, kind of argue?
Never.
Down?
Nah.
Or let it be?
Nah, I don't care about that stuff. Like, whatever their timing is, a lot of times they hold on the beat, they hold on the songs until they see you're dropping something.
Oh, yeah.
And then they want to drop it, like, at the same time. And when they hit me up and they say, yo, can you share this? I'm like, nah, I can't share that. All I'm sharing is my stuff right now. You should have dropped it at a different time. Your timing is off. You thinking that, you know, it's great. Oh, I'm gonna put this out when Ace put his album out, but I'm not gonna share and support if you're dropping something at the same time as me. It makes no sense.
Yeah, that's real silly. Like it's like they're collaborating with you and then trying to compete with you with something you're on. Like,
shout to Ayatollah. Looks like he's on here. He got a new handle on Instagram, Phantom of the Chakras. Phantom of the Chakras. That's my man Ayatollah, the beat holder.
He did some beats for you, right?
He did Hold You on Disposable Arts.
Yeah.
And he did a couple of joints on the EMC album as well, the first EMC album.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he did a joint called The Grudge, and then there's another joint I think he did too on the EMC album.
I'm actually curious too with the EMC album, because I grabbed Tonight Show off you, you know, when I seen you last year, and that was my first time hearing it. But listening to the album, you know, I like how you guys kind of, you know, you use like figures, you know, like famous figures, Hollywood figures and stuff, but just kind of change the name a little bit and stuff. I was curious, like, did anyone ever get back to you, like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of
Well,
use my.
the only name, what name did we change? Rosie Perez played herself.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Tony Rock played himself. Russell Peters actually changed. He played the role of the host of the show, so he wasn't himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tony Rock, Rosie Perez. I might be leaving out one other person that featured on the skit. But they played themselves. It wasn't even a change in it. And those were the actual people. Rosie Perez came to the studio and did that skit for me. Like 15, 20 minutes, she knocked it out. I said, yo, thank you, gave her a big hug. That was straight love, straight favor, straight looking out. You know what I mean? And same thing with Tony Rock. Came to the studio, laid it down in a few minutes, dapped him up. My daughter got to meet him.
Oh, dope.
That's just favors, you know. My man Wordsworth always tells me that he says you never use your special powers. You got special powers, but you never want to use them. Meaning that asking people, you know, I'm very judicious about asking people to help me out with something when it's a favor. You know, I try to really not be that guy that's always asking for a favor. Always, yo, look out for me on this. Like, I try not to be that guy. So I definitely held those favors in my back pocket until the right moment. And, you know, Words like, come on, man. I'm like, what if they say no? He's like, yo, they're not going to say no. Just ask. And so it worked out for that album. Very cool.
Oh, yeah, see, I think now that you say that, I think when I was listening, I assumed that you guys like just had people acting those roles. I don't think I realized you had all of them actually come through for that.
Yeah, if you read the credits, they're all there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Comedian Russell Peters, comedian Tony Rock, and actress Rosie Perez, the great Rosie Perez.
I was just watching something with Rosie Perez in it like last night.
Oh yeah?
Or like a night or two ago, something on Netflix that she was in. I'm trying to think what it was. I think it was might have been LSD documentary or something. I think she was she did a little piece in.
Okay.
But one thing I wanted to ask too, though, kind of like it kind of coincides with what we were talking about previously. But one thing I was wondering too, like you know, we were talking about you know, how artists make revenue and stuff. I was curious, like for someone who's been through both phases of the game, like, you know, when you came in, it was vinyl, CDs, maybe a little bit cassette still, and now to today where it's a lot of it's digital. How do you feel like, I mean, it may be kind of skewed because I know you kind of teeter the line of independence, right? Like I know that you and Marco Polo put the album out through Fat stuff, but a lot of stuff you do is independent as well.
That's independent. Me and Marco through Fat Beach is independent.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just distribution that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But so I'm curious, like, how do you find that you made more money off of like the actual sell of the music in the CD era, or do you find that the streams actually in turn are more profitable?
Definitely the CD era, physical music, vinyl CDs. To this day, I still make more music from physical because we sell the stuff online, we sell the stuff at shows, and obviously they sell it they distribute it to physical stores all around the world, and those things sell through. To this day, like I still get checks for Son of Yvonne, for Disposable Arts, for A Long Hot Summer from physical sales. Not I mean there is digital money that's generated, but it's pennies, man. It's like not a lot of money.
Yeah, I was curious about that because, like, I've heard some artists actually say that, like Snack the Ripper, he's another Canadian artist, but, like, he was talking about kind of dealing with what's going on now because he's a heavy touring artist. And he said that he was like, he mentioned that his fans, you know, have actually been going to streaming a lot of his music since this happened and that it's actually kind of helped keep him afloat, which I was a little bit surprised by because, you know, from what I've heard a lot is that streams don't equal much. But I was just curious, you know, from someone who's actually been through both phases of the game, kind of what your input was on that.
I mean, if you're getting 10 million streams, then it might start to look like something.
Yeah.
But like, if you get 1 million streams of an album, I think it's something like six grand or something like that, just to get 1 million streams. So yeah, it's not a lot of money.
No, not at all. Considering especially like, you know, CD sales when you were on a label back in the day, you still got around like what, like $1 an album or something if they sold for like 15, 16.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's nowadays though these 360 deals, like even if you did a 360 deal, that $6,000 is really $3,000.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's true. One thing I'd want to, well, actually, you know what? Because when we talked last, you guys had just put out the Brooklyn album not too long before that. So I do want to talk a bit about that album. You know, obviously there's some, you know, history too. You know, you got so much history in the game. There's always some stuff like that to cover. But one thing that's a little more current than the album you and Marco did that I wanted to ask about was the new Gangstar album. The second joint was the Lights Out joint. And then Aguilar posted later that day, and he played the original version, and it was actually produced by you, and it was him and Guru and someone else on the joint.
Yeah. I forgot about that song completely.
Really, eh?
Like completely. Like even when I saw the Gangstar album and I saw the title Lights Out, I just thought it was because that was the original name of the beat that I made. Because I used the sample that said Lights Out, Lights Out. I sampled this voice sample. And I don't even remember who I sampled at this point, but when Aguilar, actually Premier called me and he was like, "Yo, did you do the original Lights Out?" And I was like, "I don't know. What do you mean?" He's like, "Aguilar said that you produced the version that Guru recorded back in the day, but I said, can you get me a copy of it? I need to hear the beat, because I knew the beat that I made, but I wanted to hear the original."
Yeah.
And he got it for me, played it for me. I was like, yes, I did do this beat. I did this beat. This is my beat. I didn't even know that song ever came out.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. My memory of that time, I think, because me and Guru was hanging pretty tough back then, and it was definitely one of the first beats that I made. And all I can think of is he was like, "Yo, that's dope. Let me use it for something." And I was like, "Here, go ahead." But I wasn't like tracking him down like, "Yo, what happened with my beat? Would you put it out on?" Like none of that. I didn't even think nothing about it. And if Aguilar didn't mention it, Premier didn't mention it, I had no memory of that at all. And once I heard it, I remembered the beat, but the rhymes I never heard those rhymes before. So I never knew what he did to the beat, or what did with the beat, I should say.
That's crazy, because I know that they did like, it probably wasn't a big pressing, but I know that they did have at least like a very limited single pressing of it. Like it was like Bald Head Slick, or whatever, however they labeled it. But so yeah, that's crazy. Like I'm surprised that you never even actually heard it back then when they, you know, kind of.
I had no clue about it. I don't remember anything about it, but that's dope. You know, I mean, I consider him that's one of my people. So I'm not gonna be like, "Yo, what's up with my cut?" Like I'm not doing that with Guru. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. No, and and it turned out really dope. I love the new Gangstar album, but I just, when I went and actually peeped the original song, I was like, "Boy, get out of here!" I'm like, Masta Ace producers. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Do
you remember?
Yeah, it's.
Sorry.
Huh? No.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Dan?
No, I was just gonna say.
I was just gonna say, do you remember like that time frame, like when you made the beat and stuff at all? Like after you heard it, like do you remember like even creating the beat or anything like that, or even giving it to Guru at all, or just kind of?
All I remember is that, like when it was finally made, I remember playing it, like listening to it and playing it, and I don't know if I had planned on rhyming to it or what, but it was just one of the first. It was one of the first batch beats that I made where the beat was good enough to play for people. Like, "Yo, check this out." I made a bunch of stuff in those early days. Shortly after DJ Premier gave me my lessons on the MPC and the Kai S950, because I learned on his setup, like the setup that he used. He told me, yeah, because me and Premier lived very close to each other during that time. This is like 90. Probably 92, 91, 92, around in there, 93 maybe. And he was like, I said, "Tell me what you use, and I'll buy that equipment." Because I didn't want to have to like read the manual. I didn't want to read no manuals or nothing. I just wanted to get it and immediately start making beats.
Yeah.
So he told me what he used. I bought that equipment. I went to his crib, and I was like, okay, show me what you do. And he showed me how to sample a record, how to sample it into the S950, how to get it from the S950 to the pads. So somewhere in my house, I have the original notes of the day when Premier showed me step by step how to make a beat for the first time. I wrote down every note, like what button to hit this button and it's going to do this. Like I have it all written out. I was like there with a pen and pad, like taking notes, and I took those notes home and I immediately started making beats. And somewhere in that first maybe month or so of making beats, that Lights Out beat was probably one of those beats that I made around that time.
Wow, that's crazy. Like,
yeah.
So, wow. So that leads me on a couple different things. But first, I guess that is directly connected. But so, like, because you said that's around like 94 time, right? 93, 94?
Right. I want to say 92 or 93. Yeah.
Wow. So, like, that beat, by the time Guru and, like, Aguilar would have rapped on that beat was probably already, like,
it was probably 7, 8 years old, probably.
Wow, that's crazy. And then they put that in, and then it, in turn, became, you know, the basis first song on the new album.
Which is probably why I wasn't aware of it, because it came out so many years later. I forgot all about it. I don't remember hearing that song.
Wow.
If I had heard it, I would have been like, oh, that's my joint. Because I remember the sample, Lights Out, Lights Out. I wish I knew what I sampled some rap song. It probably was a random, it was, because I had a lot of acapellas. I kept like my little rap acapellas in a stack, and I would always grab an acapella and just listen, try to find a little piece, a little vocal piece I liked, and then use it. So it would take me a minute to figure out where I got that from, but Lights Out, yeah.
Wow, crazy. And so you produced that one on the MP then?
Yeah, everything I did was on the MP, and I would sample with the S950.
Yeah.
And then I would trigger with the MP. I wasn't even using the MP for sampling, because that's not how I was taught.
Yeah.
Premier, when he taught me, he didn't teach me to sample with the Akai. He only taught me to use the Akai as a sequencer. So I wasn't even really. I mean the not the SP, the Akai MPC, I should say. I'm saying SP, I meant MPC. I wasn't using the MPC to its full capacity. I could have been using it to do more than I was using it for, but I used it as almost just like a trigger.
Yeah.
And a sequencer, and that's how I learned, and that's what I used.
Oh wow, man.
MPC, not S. If I said SP, I meant MPC.
That's cool, man. And so I guess clearly then, like, because I thought maybe when you produced it, it was like a little closer to when they would have recorded it. So I was kind of curious if you knew at all the process in which how like Solar acquired those recordings. But clearly, if it was done that many years before, probably no idea. Eh?
Well, Guru had all the Bullhead Slick stuff. He had possession of all of that stuff, and so through his probably relationship with Solar, they were working closely together. My guess is they were working on a project, and he was like, "Yo, let's reuse these vocals," but he never got the chance to, repurpose those vocals on something else, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And curious too, like, just talking about spending so much time with Premier early in those days, curious, like, in those days when you're just kicking it with Primo at his place, or like even him teaching you the ropes of production and stuff, did he ever play you any beats, like, that he was working on that went on to become classics, like, early versions of like Dwick or like anything like that, like before the songs were even done?
He never played me any beats, but he played me songs that he did that were not mixed yet. And one of the songs I specifically remember him playing was the Mobb Deep joint that he produced called Cop Hell.
Oh shit!
And I remember being in his MPV, his Mazda MPV, driving around Queens, and he's like, "Yo, I just did this beat for this new group," and he played it for me, and I remember him just turning it all the way up, and we would just it had this ill like sound on it, and I was like, "Who really? These dudes?" I had never heard of them. I was like, "Who these dudes?" He's like, "They call Mobb Deep." I was like, "Okay, I never heard of them, but this joint sound rough right here. This rugged." And then that's who put me on to Mobb Deep. I never heard of Mobb Deep until that that time in the van with Premier when he played me the remix to Cop Hell that he did.
Wow, crazy.
Yep.
That Primo remix is crazy too. Like a lot of people don't really know about that joint, but that's one of Primo's, in my opinion, one of his like illest abstract beats. Like that, it's like like an pitch like violin note or something. Like oh, that's crazy, man. That'd have been cool to, just to be able to like witness that kind of thing. You know what I mean? To be able to like, and then to see what Mobb Deep went on to become. Like, that's insane.
But when you're in the moment and you're living it, it doesn't seem like nothing special about it. It's just regular life.
Yeah.
You just it's regular stuff. You don't realize the impact of that moment until years later, decades later, and you're like, man, I remember I first heard the Mobb Deep first Cop Hell remix, and now look what they became. Like, it doesn't hit you in that. You're never gonna realize it in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and when Mobb Deep too, when they did that Juvenile Hell album, like, they're still a little rugged, but they had more of a polished kind of like, image, like with peer pressure and stuff. Like I was gonna ask, but I'm sure you couldn't know. But you probably never would have imagined at that time, listening to that they would become, the next like shit out of New York, probably, eh?
Nah, because the production. Because we ultimately, after he told me about them, we listened to the Juvenile Hell album. I listened to the Juvenile Hell album, a couple of the songs, and I was like, it's cool. It wasn't what it needed to be, right? And then they go from that to the Infamous. The production level jumped. It jumped so far from that album to. I was like, these are the same guys. Like, it was just a whole different feeling when they dropped the Infamous. When Infamous dropped, 94?
Is it 94, 95?
It might be 95. I think 95. Yeah, because Cinema Chrome was out like at the same time. Right in there. Yeah, but such a huge leap from Juvenile Hell to the Infamous in terms of production and in terms of how they were rhyming too. Everything about it was different and so much better.
Yeah, because when I'm younger, but like, so I'm 30 now, and I remember when I was growing up, for years, I thought Infamous was actually Mobb Deep's first album. It wasn't until I was like damn near years old, because I wasn't there at the time to see like the progression. I was, just researching shit when I'm like, I don't know, like 17, 18. Like, this is the time YouTube just starting and stuff. And I'm looking at stuff. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, Mobb Deep had an album before the Infamous? I'm like, whoa, hold on. And stuff. It's like, whoa.
In everybody's mind, though, Infamous is their debut, even though there was one before that. In everybody's mind, it was that was their debut because they were figuring things out on that first one.
Yeah, it's like, and just to see what they went on to become is just absolutely insane. Like, in the progression between those two albums, like,
I wish I knew what the difference was with Havoc in terms of the first album and then jumping into the Infamous. What changed in that year and a half, 2 year time period? Like, did he like sit down with somebody and learn some techniques? Did he just start digging more for records? Like, I'm just curious to know, like, how did he get from there to there in just a couple of years in one album? It's amazing.
And just like they, they kind of went from like doing it's hard to explain, but they go from Juvenile Hell to literally creating like their own sound. You know what I mean? Like their complete own sound. Yeah. And I know Q-Tip helped a little bit, like, especially I think Havoc said Q-Tip helped him a lot with like learning how to like make his drums hit the right way and stuff. But like
you could hear it too. You could hear it because the snares were so loud. The snare was so loud on the Infamous album, and that's what Tribe was known for, that super loud snare. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's, I'm the same thing. Like, I'd love to be able to pick Havoc's brain and just be like, yo, what happened? Like, what kind of shit did you see in life between those two albums? Because, yeah, like, Juvenile Hell's dope. Like, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, to be able to, go from that to literally creating a complete new sound in hip-hop, which would go on to, you know, everybody wanted to be Mobb Deep after that for a good chunk of time. You know what I mean? It's like,
Especially the young cats coming up at that time, definitely.
yeah. And did you and Havoc ever work together? Like, did you ever get any Havoc beats?
Nah,
No.
I never did. We never really we never formally really like met or hung out, even though so many of our we have a lot of people in common, but we never really like hung. Like if we met, it was like super brief, like a quick dap with and keeping it moving, but never like met because it's really two different generations. Like my generation was a little before them, so. But like I said, we had a lot of mutual friends. You know, DITC people, Premier, that whole. You know, we knew a lot of the same people and we're in a lot of the same circles, but they're like younger guys to me, so we wouldn't have never really hung out like that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be. But now thinking of it, like Masta Ace on some Havoc production, like that would sound nice.
It's never impossible. Could still
Yeah,
happen.
definitely. And I want to ask something too. You know, just earlier today, just brushing up on some stuff. I thought I seen it, but I can't remember now. I didn't deeply read into it. But were you with Big Beat at a period of time?
I was at Big Beat, but I released no music. I
Okay.
was signed when I left Delicious Vinyl in '96. Um, right after Sitting on Chrome came out, Big Beat signed me from Delicious Vinyl. They signed me over to them, and I had a song called Top 10 List that that was just bubbling on the college radio, and so Big Beat was like, "Oh, we want to that song is really bubbling. Let us you know take them off your hands." So whatever deal they did, they bought me out of my contract with Delicious, and I went over to Big Beat and I started immediately working on my next album for Big Beat. Would have been my next album for Big Beat. But then I had label execs, you know, trying to influence the music I was making because I was letting them hear stuff as I was making it, and it was coming out nice, but it wasn't. You know, you got to remember now we're talking about '96. This is the very beginnings of the Bad Boy era, and they were really taking over the radio. You know, they had all this music that was just all over the radio,
Yeah.
and it was a lot more kind of R&B vibe, kind of hip hop sounding hip hop stuff that could play in the clubs that made the girls want to dance. And I had Big Beat saying, you know, you need to do some records that are more in that vein. I was doing some straight up like hip hop stuff, like I won't say straight boom bap, but it was just stuff that was like definitely on that grimier side. I wasn't trying to be on the radio with the stuff I was giving them, and they weren't really feeling it. They were like, "You need to go in the studio and make some stuff that's more commercially, you know, viable."
Yeah.
And I tried it. I did try it, like, 'cause, you know, I wanted to keep my deal if I could. I didn't really, you know, at the time, the thought of going independent wasn't a normal thought. So
Yeah.
what I was trying to do was appease the label and give them what they were asking for. So I went back in the studio and tried to formulate some loops that were a little bit more, you know, like go try to rob an old soul loop or old R&B loop and see if I could rap over that. I did some stuff that, you know, listening back to it now, I'm like, oh, I'm glad that didn't come out, like, because it really wasn't who I was. I was really trying to please the label,
Yeah.
and you know, it wasn't coming from an honest place. It was coming from a place of trying to really just stay alive and survive. And that's what a lot of artists have to deal with. They have to deal with labels in their ear, telling them what to make. You know, they even suggested. Do you remember the group Changing Faces? It was two girls, R&B group.
I know the name, but I can't think of what their single
Yeah,
would have.
yeah. They had a song called "All of My Days" or something like that. But they had a couple of radio hits, and you know, I remember the label specifically saying like, "Why don't you get Changing Faces or Brian McKnight to sing a hook for you?"
Oh
Like
shit.
they really wanted me to go that route, like all the
Yeah.
way, and I just was not. You know, I went. I actually made a couple of calls to try to see if I could do it, like pull it off, and I got a little resistance. And then I was like, "Why am I doing this? I don't want to do this."
Yeah.
And when we had our next meeting, I played them the stuff that I had made, which was definitely not what they were asking for. And they were like, I think we need to part ways. And I was like, I agree.
Oh wow.
And that was it. And that was it. And then I was really so, by now it's like 97, or pretty much about to be 97. And I said, well, I'm just going to go behind the scenes. I'm going to just start, working with artists. I had Paula Perry signed in Motown. I had Lachey signed in Warner Brothers. I said, I'll just focus on production and being an executive producer and forget about the rap and stuff. Like, I was done with it. 97, I was done with it. I was like, I'm going to focus on being behind the scenes, and maybe I can do more damage from behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I just walked away from it for a few years.
And so that would be the period of time then too, because I remember last time we talked, we kind of talked about how there was a period of time like before Disposable Arts, how you were kind of bouncing from different labels, putting singles out here and there. So that would have been right after you left Big Beat around then, I guess.
It was about 2 years of not doing any music at all, and then
Oh really?
yeah, and then I think J Love had asked me to do a single with him. I did a song called NY Confidential, and I forgot what the B-side was. Splash, a song called Splash. I did those. I did another single called Ghetto Like with my man
Yeah.
Filthy Rich, and those were kind of like little. Those songs were like me kind of just like sticking my toe in the water to see if the water was warm or if it was cold, to see what I and then I wound up in Philly. I wound up in Philadelphia working with Jazzy Jeff with his Touch of Jazz camp. They were working on some music, and I went down there and started working on. Shout out to DJ AV, who kind of like introduced me to that camp. And I went out there and started working on music with them. And the Touch of Jazz, Jazzy Jeff had like three production rooms. He had like a main room and then 2 pre-production rooms. And just being in that atmosphere, because literally every room, there were producers and musicians in every room making music, like nonstop. Yeah. And just bouncing from room to room, listening to different stuff that was being made, that kind of like got my energy going again. That was like 99. And then in 2000, a tour happened. I went to Europe for a tour. I did the 13 shows in Europe. I think it was like 7 or 8 shows in the UK and then a couple shows in Germany. And to my surprise, when I went out there, like the energy of the people at these shows, people knew my music. They knew the songs. They knew the words to the songs. And I left that tour at the end of 2000 saying, you know what, maybe I can do another album. Maybe I'll do one more just to kind of like go out on my own terms, because I didn't like the way I was going out,
Yeah.
And so I said, but if I do another record, it's got to be completely the record I want to do. I don't want to hear no label people in my ear, nothing. So let's keep it independent, and I'm gonna make the exact record I want to make, and then I'll go out on that note. And that album was Disposable Arts. Yep.
Yeah. Which, in my opinion, all your work is great. Everything from the first album all the way up to the new Brooklyn album with Polo. Every album is great. But, I think we talked about this last time, but Disposable Arts is hands down, I think, my favorite out of the bunch still. Like, that's just
Thank you.
An untouchable album, you know what I mean? Like, it goes up there top, if not top 10, top 20 best hip-hop albums of all time, in my opinion. Like, it's front to back.
I appreciate it. That's my favorite album of mine.
Yeah.
I really owe the last, that was 2001. So I owe the last 19 years of my career to that album, to Disposable Arts. Because if Sitting on Chrome had been my last album, I would have been done a long time ago. I'd be working for the post office or something like that.
Yeah.
But that album has extended my career for 19 years. Amazing.
Yeah, it's like, I like to say it's a hip hop classic, but it's definitely in which it is, and I guess everything's subjective in that sense. In my opinion, it's a hip hop classic, but I think that album definitely is like a cult classic too. You know what I mean? Like there's like, that's like the album, when people mention you in that top tier conversation at MCs, you know, people are using examples off that album 100%, you know.
That's love, man. It's I'm just glad that I did that album. Um, there was enough things happening around me to make me feel like it wasn't worth doing. But then I got that, that renewed feeling of let's do one more for the road, and that's what it was, and that's why, I did the song No Regrets.
Yeah.
At the end, that was kind of like my parting words, um, and it wound up turning into a lot more.
Oh man, I love No Regrets. And you know what? Now that you say that too, I never even made the correlation, but you know, that and Nostalgia are two of my favorite songs of yours. And they're both kind of that same tone, like, kind of like saying, it's like kind of like your last hurrah kind of thing.
Yeah,
You know
yeah, yeah. I was trying to exit for a little bit there. I was trying to like, okay, let's exit on a high note. That was my thing. I want to go out on a high note, not a low note. So Disposable was a great way to kind of like, go out. And then I did a Long Hot Summer, and people love that album. Some people even love that album even more than Disposable. But
Yeah.
each one of those albums brought a whole new batch of fans into my, my orbit, which was great. And then I did Nostalgia sometime right after I did Long Hot Summer. I did Nostalgia. I said, okay, because I figured Long Hot Summer. Okay, I got the two. I got that next solo joint off, out of my system. I got to do this single for Marco, but this will probably be the last go around. And boy, it just kept going, like because the fans made it keep going. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
It was the fans.
Because Nostalgia grew legs of its own, man. That was back when YouTube was the Wild West, and there's a lot of ringtone out, rap out, and shit. I remember out, and and that's one thing too, man. I just want to thank you, as a fan of this culture, as a fan of the music, and as a fan of just lyricism and poetry and hip hop. Like, I want to thank you for your contributions. But that contribution right there is probably, to me, in my own nostalgia. Not to be corny by saying that, but like that's probably the most important record to me because that came out at a time where I was losing faith in hip hop. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that was coming out at the time, it just was not, it didn't represent what I liked about the music anymore, and it was getting harder and harder to find music I liked. The artists coming out were not representing it. The artists who had been in the game, who are on the bigger platform, were putting out some most subpar material. A lot of them were moving away from that core sound. And when you guys came up with Nostalgia, I was just like, this is exactly why the fuck I love hip hop. You know what I mean? Like that song to this day, I know every word of that song, and I'll probably never forget a single word to that damn song,
And I tried to pay homage to all of the different Juice Crew members on that song by starting and ending each verse with a lyric from the main core Juice Crew members.
Yeah.
And, just as a way to kind of like salute, thanks for taking me on the ride with y'all and giving me that opportunity to just shine. And so that was my homage to, Big Daddy Kane, MC Shan, Craig G, Roxanne Shante, Bismarck E, Cool G Rap, and Marley Marl, of course. And I think it went over their heads a little bit. I don't know. To this day, I don't even know if the Juice Crew members know that I did that. Believe it or not. As old as that song is, I don't even know if they know that I paid that homage on that song and how I did that.
It's the ace in the flesh. Of course I'm fresh. What, you thought that I was rotten? You must have gotten.
Word.
Man. But when you hit the, at the end, when you guys hit the Eric Sermon, Relentless, this might be my last, like that still gives me goosebumps. We're 10 years removed from that, and you're still in the game, you're still putting out amazing content. But when I hear that, still it gives me goosebumps. You know what I mean? Like that's that feeling you really captured with that song. Like it's a timeless piece of music.
And that was something that Marco added. I didn't even know that was going to be on the song. I didn't tell him to do that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a producer decision. He decided to add that in. I mean, it was based on stuff that I was kind of saying to him at that time, because I was like, Disposable was really supposed to be my last album, but I did Long Hot Summer just because, you know, of what happened with Disposable. The distributor went out of business right after the album came out, and people didn't really get the album didn't get a fair shake. So I'm doing Long Hot Summer just to remind people that I did this album, Disposable Art. So that's why I did that album. And
Yeah.
I said, but pretty much after that, I'm gonna kind of probably be hanging it up. So let's do this record. So he just decided, yo, I'm gonna put this might be my last in there, because I think he thought that's where I was really headed.
Yeah.
Mentally, I was pretty much there though.
And it's crazy, man. You know how there's these there's these pinnacle points of your career where, you know, you've been ready to hang it up a few times, and then once you get in that zone, you drop, like, you know, one of the best piece of works of your career. You know what I mean? Like Disposable Arts. And you're like, okay, cool, yeah, maybe they, you know, a little bit more juice in this engine, you know, and then you get to nostalgia and you're kind of back where you're like, all right, you know, I think I've left my mark well enough, and then nostalgia goes and takes legs of its own. Like, I remember that thing had, you know,
That video went crazy.
yeah, like
I had no idea. I didn't know
like
that video
that-
was gonna do what it did. I thought it was a cool video. I thought it
Yeah.
was a pretty cool video, but it wasn't like groundbreaking or nothing like that. You know, b-boys, you know, breakdancing in the park, like a regular stuff. I didn't think
Yeah.
it was gonna have the type of response that it had, but man, overseas, that thing took off crazy. To this day, we perform that record, people go crazy.
And the thing is too with that, like, you know, a lot of, you know, nowadays in the age of the internet, you know, even back then it was happening too, but, you know, a lot of people sell records through theatrics, you know what I mean? Like very high budget music videos, or even if they're not the highest budget, you know, very creative ways of making things look high budget, you know, like a lot of things are sold to you off presentation. And that's one thing I think that speaks to that song that makes it so classic, is that the video is actually relatively low budget. You know what I mean? It's not shot on the greatest camera. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's pretty regular. The park, people breakdancing, you guys just kind of chilling. You go by the quarter water, which I thought was really, you know, I love that at the beginning. You know, and so it goes to show that the music spoke for itself. You know what I mean? And people weren't there to watch the visuals. People were there to hear the, you know what I mean? And I think that's important.
Good point.
There's not, you know, I think in the age of, you know, YouTube and, you know, a lot of stuff is sold off theatrics. You know what I mean? Like, even like, look at this Tekashi shit going on. You know, like a lot of things are sold off, you know, just plain theatrics, whatever aspect of it that it be. So, you know, when you put something out like that, and it's not enticing you by presentation by any means, like that means those people are strictly there for the art, and they're coming back for the art, and they're showing their friend and their friend's friend, and that's spreading like wildfire because the music is so good. And I think that's what something that makes that out, you know, that record so classic as well too.
And those are the people that make up the majority of who my fans are.
Yeah,
it's not because there's people that, you know, you mention my name and they're like, yeah, I think I know who that is. Yeah, that's the guy that made Me in the Biz, right? Like, and they literally don't know about anything beyond Me in the Biz. Like my first single in 1990, anything after that, they just have no concept of, because, oh, well, it wasn't on the radio, so I thought he just stopped making records. I thought he stopped making music because I didn't hear no more songs on the radio. And I'm happy to say that, like, the majority of my fans are not those kind of people. They're people who follow the records, know the music, know the skits, know the characters in the skits, and have followed my career throughout, you know, the last 20 some odd years of doing it, and really 30 years if you go the whole length of time. But it's a blessing, man. I'm glad that I was able to, you know, do it that way, and that I had the fans that stayed with me that whole ride.
Yo, and you know, I commend your fans, and I commend you, man, because, you know, like I've told you, you know, numerous times now in past interviews, but, you know, you're one of my favorite MCs of all time. And, you know, just what you've always stood for, I've always found very inspirational. You know what I mean? Like, you know, a lot of artists teeter that borderline of like integrity and doing things to stay relevant, but then they still have their integrity intact. And you know what I mean? And it's like a teetering line, like, it's in your fan artist relationship. I find a lot of times, you know, when I've been a very big fan of artists, but you're one artist that never steered me, you know what I mean, put me on that line of balance of, you know what I mean, like I gotta worry about respect from you. It's always
I almost had that moment though. Remember, I told you about the Big Beat album.
Yeah, yeah,
That Big Beat album I was working on. There was some songs on there that I would have been embarrassed later on that those songs came out because I was really trying to appease the label and give them what they were asking for. They wanted something that was a little more jiggy, a little
yeah,
more on the radio, in the clubs for the girls. And I'm trying to give them what they were asking for, even though it was really against what I believed. And so I was really glad that that relationship went the way it went, and those records never really came out because they didn't need to come out because it wasn't true to who I was. It was me trying to, make the label happy.
yeah. No, and as much as I would love to hear the record, just because I'm a fan of your music, and I'm sure, like, the type of record that you say you're not happy with, I'm sure, like, if I was to hear it, I'd still be like, oh, this is fire. You know what I mean? It'd be something different.
I mean,
But,
the verses were cool. The verses were cool, but it was me. I was talking. The content was, the flavor of that time period.
yeah,
Cars, girls, champagne, like some of that. It was like a little bit of all of that. I was trying to like walk the line. I wasn't like going hardcore, like this is what I do, but I would throw those little important things in the rhyme so that people would be like, okay, I'm gonna satisfy them with this little mention of this designer thing. Like it wasn't
yeah.
it wasn't good, man. Like those records will stay, those songs will stay in my collection, and I'll play them for you in the van, but they're never gonna see the light of day.
Never see the light of day. You know what, though? That it's, just to look back, though, at like your history, I think everybody learns from mistakes, but I think it's pretty safe to say you made a lot of the right decisions, when coming to that kind of stuff, just where you are now. And, just your legacy alone, speaks volumes. Like,
I appreciate it, man. It's been a great ride so far. Let's keep it going.
word, man. This is gonna shut us off in like a minute because it only goes for an hour. So if I shut it off, you down to hop back in?
But you got more you want to do?
Yeah, I got some more stuff we can talk
Couple.
about. Unless you're tight on time, we can,
All right.
always save it for the future.
No, let's don't do another whole hour though. Let's just do a little.
No, yeah, that's cool. We'll keep it short. We'll keep it short.
All right.
All right, cool, bro. I'll tap out here and then I'll just jump right back in. All right.
All right. Cool.
Thanks for jumping back in with me. We can always talk again in the future when you got something else coming out too. So but like I said, man, I could talk to you for hours, man. So we'll cut it kind of short here. I just want to see which direction to go with. But one thing I did want to actually ask about is because you mentioned before you did Disposable Arts how you went and did a European tour. And how, like, seeing all the support that you had out there kind of gave you a resurgence and, like, inspiration and wanted to, end your legacy right, kind of in turn made Disposable Arts. But I was curious, was that your first time actually going overseas to tour, like, and actually see that reaction at all, or, like?
Not my first time. No, I first went overseas in '91. My very first time, I went to London, and and then I went over to London a couple of times in the early '90s, and then I went to Denmark. I went to Denmark like in the mid '90s, like '97, '6, '5, right in there, '5, '6. I went to Denmark, and then I went back to the UK like '98 for a few dates, '99 maybe, and then 2000 was like the real first extended tour where it wasn't just like 2 shows, it was like 13 shows, and it had a big impact. I didn't realize it was like that until that.
Yeah. And then would that be like then to go forward and actually do Disposable Arts, did you find that like at the time of dropping that album as well, that it did relatively better overseas?
Well, the one thing I do know, this was 2001, so the album came out in October. right before Halloween, and we went out to Europe right after September 11th happened.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, we went out. So September 11th happened, and we were flying out on like the 18th or something. Like 7 days later, we were flying to Europe for this tour. And when we landed, the album wasn't going to be out for another, month. And already people knew some of the songs, because remember, this is the era of what is that called? That sharing platform where everybody was just sharing. What is it?
Napster.
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 Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So we had serviced the album to press, to get reviews. So a bunch of magazines had the album, and the album leaked. So when I touched down in Europe for the first few shows, I'm performing songs that's off the album that isn't out yet, and people knew the songs already.
Oh wow.
And I was like, well, that's a good sign, even though this means that the album got got leaked. But the fact that people care enough to learn the words to these brand new songs is kind of crazy, and it just showed me the level of enthusiasm people had for what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I do got a couple fan questions here, so I do want to make sure I ask them before we do get out. They're
Yeah.
not very flat, but one question from Facebook. Who asked it? I can't remember now, so I'm sorry to my G. They're gonna be pissed I didn't shout them out with it. Damn it. Anyways, they wanted to know how. Oh, sorry. Yes, shout outs to Lakes. I got you, bro. He wanted to know how you and Edo G linked up to do the A&E project and kind of like the history of your guys' relationship together.
All right. So in 2004, when I dropped the Long Hot Summer, I was doing a tour, and Edo wound up rolling on that tour with me, and we did about 26 shows together. We were in the van together the whole time. It was him and his crew with Jason, and me with Strickland and DJ AV. And we, during that time period from '04, we had collaborated on a bunch of other people's songs.
Yeah.
Like dudes would ask me to do a verse. I do the verse, and then I hear the final version, and Edo G's on it too. And the same thing happened the other way. People would ask him to do a verse and then throw me on it. So we wound up being on about, 5 or 6 different records of other people's records together. Plus, I collaborated on his song, on his album. He collaborated on my album. So it sounded like could be a cool thing, but he was more thinking that it was a good idea than I was. I was kind of feeling like, ain't nobody interested in that. Like two guys from my era coming together to do a group. It just didn't sound really that appetizing to me. So I was kind of like brushing it off. He mentioned it, I brush it off. He mentioned it, I brush it off. And then he came to me one day and he's like, "Yo, I got somebody that got money. They want to give us some. They want to put money in our pockets to do this album." And money changes the conversation, of course, because that means that somebody's interested enough to invest.
Yeah.
So I said, "Cool, let's do it." So the deal was go in the studio. They were going to pay us X amount of money to lay down 10 songs, and then that was the deal. We go in the studio, we lay down 10 songs, and then they give us the rest of the money. So we went in the studio, we laid down the 10 songs. When it came time to pay the rest of the money, they were out of money. They didn't have no more money. So then it became, okay, well, the investor has left the building. How do we feel about the songs that we've done? And I felt like we had some really good songs, and we decided that we would put the rest of the money up ourselves and finish the record. So we decided to finish the record, and the result is that album.
Wow. And so when you guys were in the process of actually recording it, had the investor at least covered the bills prior to studio sessions and stuff, or were you kind of left at the end with all these expenses you guys had to pay?
Oh, no, it was no expenses. the studio was covered, and our pockets were covered for the first 10 songs. It was just after that,
Yeah.
going forward, because who I don't it was somebody that he knew. It wasn't even it wasn't one of my people. It was somebody that he knew that brought them to the table, and they just decided to that they didn't want to go put any more money into it. So we had to decide if we were going to keep going forward or just end it right there. We could have took the money and just left it where it was.
Oh wow.
But the music sounded pretty good, so I said let's keep going.
Yeah, it's a dope album, and it's kind of, I'm kind of surprised someone would go as far to, pay you guys, pay for the time, get all this stuff done, get these records done, and then just disappear. Like.
Yeah,
Like
I think some personal stuff happened, and he just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of a blessing. So you guys ended up retaining ownership to all that stuff once he dropped out, I guess?
Yeah, exactly. We owned the record. And we just went and we every time if we got a beat from a producer, we would just go half on the purchase of it, or a verse. We would just go half. We just went half on stuff. Mixing, we just went half on everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys ended up making, a super dope project like The Lil Young. That was another one that when it came out, it spoke volumes to me. It was glad. It just felt good to have an artist who you looked up to, respected very much, come out and say the things you were already thinking. You know what I mean? It was like,
Yeah.
My boys felt that way. So when you guys dropped that, and we were both, me and my clique were all big fans of you and Edo separately. So when you guys came together and did that, we're like, yo, this is crazy,
Very cool. Very cool.
And, so I got two more things I do want to ask, and I'll let you get out of here, man. I don't want to keep you all night. One is just another thing. Another one of my buddies wanted me to actually ask you. He's a big fan of your guys' stuff. He's a big MF Doom fan. He was kind of curious. Shout outs to Oscar. He was curious how the whole MA Doom Son of Yvonne thing came about.
So one of my good friends who was on the chat earlier before we had to start it over, my man Roman Oben. He came by the crib one day, and in his car he was playing some beats, and I was like, yo, what's those beats? Playing beats? Like, he don't rhyme or nothing like that. He's a NFL guy, football player.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh no, these are MF Doom beats that he released all his instrumentals on this series. I was like, word? I said, let me get a copy of that. He's like, I'll burn you a copy. So he burned me a copy of it, and I took the instrumentals, and I just drove around for like a couple months just playing the instrumentals, because I didn't like listening to the radio. It was the same old songs all the time.
Yeah.
I would either listen to sports radio, sports talk radio, or I'll put on the instrumentals. So as I'm driving around New York City playing these instrumentals, like, ideas just started popping in my head. Like, ooh, I would flow, like, if I had that beat, I would flow like this over it. And then it just gave birth to this idea of doing a mixtape. So you know what? Like, I'm between projects. It was like right after the A&E project. I was like, it'd be cool to just throw out a little mixtape with me rhyming over some Doom beats. I think people would mess with that.
Yeah.
So I had that idea, and then around that same time, we had a meeting with Fat Beats about something, and my partner Rich just off the cuff just mentions, oh yeah, and Ace is working on this mixtape. Maybe you guys can want to press up some vinyl for this mixtape that he's doing. And they were like, what mixtape? And he's like, well, he's going to rhyme over some MF Doom beats. They were like, what? A free mixtape? No, we don't. That needs to be for sale. We don't. That's not free. And they started showing all of this energy. Like, to me, it was just going to be just a regular, just a prize, something to throw out in between projects. That's all it was going to be to me. They started talking about budgets and video budgets and all of this, and I was like, word? Y'all would do all of that with it? Okay. That changed the whole conversation. So now I'm like, well, if they're gonna put money behind it, then I need to really give them a proper album over these beats. And so that's how it became. That's how it really came to be. I recorded pretty much the whole album. It was roughs, not mixes, but album. And then I had I had this show at the Montreux Jazz Festival, which I believe is in Switzerland. It's right close to France, but it's a yearly festival, been going on for years, a jazz festival, and me and Doom were booked on the same bill,
Oh, word.
and so by this point, I had already mentioned on social media that I was working on this album over Doom beats. So when I saw him, I told him about it. He's like, "Yeah, I heard about it. I heard about it." I said, after the show, I want to come by and play you some of the songs. So that's what we did. After the show, I went to his hotel room, sat down. I played him the whole album, really. And I was like, "Yo, it would be great if you could just be on one joint." And he was like, "I'll do it. I'm down." I was like, "Word, all right, bet." So that's how it came about. Like he literally didn't know which beats I used until I played it for him in his hotel room. And he heard the whole album in its entirety, listening. Like he was like listening to the lines too. Like he wasn't just like listening; he was like listening. Like he heard the certain lyrics and would like laugh, like, "Oh," he said, "Oh," like he was like listening. So it was kind of cool to get the reaction from him. He's like, "Yo, that shit is dope, man. That shit is dope." And it's dedicated to your moms. Yo, I love that. That's dope, man. That's dope. I would love to be on the song, and I wound up putting him on a song with Big Daddy Kane.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
is the 1970 something? Is it that joint?
Nah. It's Think I Am.
Think I Am. Yeah, that's it. I haven't heard that in it, but oh man, that's cool. That's cool. So you did it just like as a mixtape kind of thing, just like have access to these beats, because they've been put out for free kind of thing. So I'm gonna just do my thing, and then it
turns into this whole thing.
That's crazy.
He got money too. Like when the budget thing came up, he basically got the same money I got for the whole project, and he really literally didn't do anything. He just was chilling. I mean, I shouldn't say he didn't do anything because he did produce all those beats ahead of time.
Yeah.
But he literally like got handed a bag of money for just kind of like throwing out his instrumentals.
Just saying like agreeing to it basically.
Word.
Wow, that's crazy, man. That's so cool. That's fun. That is cool. I'm glad that I asked that now. So Oscar, that's for you, brother. I'm glad I asked that now. That's interesting. And just one more thing, before we do, because I know it's current, and you kind of just revealed it to me last time we talked, and then I've seen that you got the wheels in motion for it now, so I kind of just wanted to follow up with it. But the musical that you're working on.
Yeah. It's coming together nicely. I'm in collaboration with a company called Rhymes Over Beats. They're a hip hop theater company, and they've really gotten behind it. They're really the motivation for me to get it finished, because I'm a writer at heart, but I don't always force myself to write. I kind of like write when the feeling hits me.
Yeah.
Which could take forever if you're trying to complete something, But because I meet once a week with a woman named Kate, who's my dramaturg. It's a new term I just learned, dramaturg. And she's the person who keeps me on schedule with my writing of the musical. Really? So we meet once a week. I let her hear what I've written for that week. She gives me feedback, adjustments, changes, feelings, thoughts, and then I go back and I make adjustments, feelings. And so we've been meeting once a week for it's going on 2 years. We've been meeting via Skype, or via, I should say, Zoom. Once a week we have this meeting. I let her hear what I have, and so we're almost 2 years in, and now I'm at the phase of, I kind of got the script, the basic script down, and now I'm at the songwriting phase, and I've been writing the songs, which is interesting because it's a slightly different process than me writing songs just for myself, like for my albums. Yeah. And now I have characters in mind, I have a storyline, I have to keep all of that stuff in mind as I'm writing the song. So it's almost like having a little bit more limitations. Like when I'm writing a song, I can go anywhere I want to go with it. Like the lyrics can go over here and come back, and go over there and come back. But when you're writing lyrics for a musical where there's a storyline, each line has to mean something. You can't have these lines out there that's just out here that don't have anything to do with anything. So yeah, it's a process, and I'm learning that process as I go, with her help. And it's definitely coming together really nicely. We had our first table read right before the quarantine. We had a table read in Manhattan. We had some actors come in. Shout out to my man Power Malo, who really brought all of the different actors in to come read for the parts. And we sat at the table. It was my first time hearing my words being spit or you know, whatever you want to call it, by actual real trained actors. And it was a very cool experience, and it helped me to know what needed to happen with the story. If you know, we had feedback from the actors afterwards. It was all really pretty positive feedback. So I'm at the songwriting phase of this of the musical. I still got to go back and tighten up the script some more. It's still a little bit too long.
Yeah.
It needs to be about 100 pages, roughly. And right before that table read, I was like at 180 pages.
Oh,
I
shit.
I got it down to like 120 something, and you know, we did the table read at 120, but that was with minus a bunch of the songs. So now that I've added a bunch of the songs, now the page numbers are going back up. So now I'm going in trying to shorten the script again, just to get because a lot of stuff I overwrite sometimes, and they say that's what you're supposed to do. You overwrite, and then you read it back, and you know, you have a scene where a character's saying the same thing 3 different times, and it really only needs to say it once.
Yeah.
So it's just a problem. It's a new process for me, but I'm learning it as I go, and it's going well, man. It's going well. I can't wait. I think, you know, the goal would be to open. Really, in my own dream, when I close my eyes, I say I open in London the first night. I open in London the first night. That's what I would like to do.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. And I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you got such a loyal fan base overseas.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool thing to do is, you know, to give them the exclusive, the first preview, and let them really have their hands with it first.
Yeah. I would like to start there. I would like to start in London, Germany, Switzerland, you know, a few major cities in Europe. Like pick 3 or 4 or 5 major cities where we do maybe a 1-week run of the musical in those markets. And we'll know from there like where we are with it, what the reaction is, what the feelings are, and we'll decide how to launch it in New York when the time comes later on.
Yeah. Man, that's cool. And with the musical as well too, like because I remember before you said it's kind of loosely based off like the concept of disposable arts. Is that kind of still the direction you've gone with it?
So
Yeah.
it's a combination of disposable arts, A Long Hot Summer, and The Fallen Season. So it's kind of like a mix and match of all of those stories. Kind of some of the characters. The Fats character is in there. The girlfriend Lisa from Disposable Arts is in there. Her storyline is somewhat similar to the storyline from Disposable Arts. Fats' character is similar. It's not really similar, but it's his character, who he is similar.
Yeah.
And you know, the guy who's playing me is similar to the character that's in the on those albums.
Yeah.
You'll see. It's coming out well, man.
And so do you I'm guessing you don't act as yourself in the actual musical, like you'll have
No. The actor. I mean, the actor's not playing. He's not. The character's name is not Ace. He's not playing me, but he's playing a version of me in my head.
Yeah.
You could say like a fictional version of me, but it's not me. Like it's not my exact story.
Yeah.
You know. So I guess I use my life as inspiration for the content, but it's not word for word my life story.
Yeah. And would you for the songs that you're doing for the musical, would you be like performing them live each night as well too, or just record them during set change?
The actors that are in the musical that are chosen for the musical, they'll have to not only be able to act but rap.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So they'll have to spit, but I will be recording the songs before the musical comes out. Yeah. So there'll be a version of this, I guess you could say, soundtrack that will be my voice on most of the songs on this kind of soundtrack. So people will know the songs ahead of time.
Yeah.
but when they go see the musical, it'll be the actual actors saying those same rhymes.
That's really cool, man. That's
Yeah.
really cool. I had the opportunity since we talked last time, probably a month or so after. I actually got approached about doing a musical here in Toronto. It's kind of like a Canadian version of Hamilton, you know what I mean? But it was about not Sir John A. Macdonald. I can't think of his name right now. Anyways, a Canadian politician, yeah, Darcy McGee. And so yeah, I had to play his role, and they had written a song, you know what I mean, and I had to learn how to rap it. And this guy didn't rap, so it was really hard going for someone who has been rapping for 10 years to memorize so much stuff, who doesn't have the cadence. You had to create your own cadence out of his words and stuff, but just a really neat experience. And I'm looking forward to seeing when you guys are finally done. I'm really excited to see it, man. I just think it's so cool. I've never seen anybody that's your caliber of artist in the game with your history do something like this. Like, it's completely revolutionary, really, to the art, and I think it's really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing it when you guys got it all together.
So am I, brother. So am I.
Word. Well, thank you very much, Ace, for your time, man. I won't keep you any longer. I really appreciate your time, bro.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Good talking to you.
No doubt, man. Do you got any new music coming out before I let you go?
I got 10 or 12 beats from Marco Polo sitting in my Dropbox waiting to get written to.
Woo!
I haven't written one bar to one beat yet, but the beats are bananas. I just got to do my part, and I wait for the inspiration. I don't just force words onto a song. I wait for the inspiration. When the inspiration comes, I'll write it.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's what I like to hear. You and Polo, great duo together, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Word, I appreciate you, Ace, man. Stay safe during the rest of this quarantine nonsense, get out of it.
You too, man. You too.
And look forward to everything you got, man.
Yep.
Cheers, man. Appreciate your time, Ace.
Peace, brother.